Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Sita, the heroine of Ramayana, wife of Lord Rama, has always been revered in India, but she is revered for the wrong reason. She is revered as a loving wife, as a caring wife, as a very demure, quiet, suffering lady. No, she is not. She is a brave, courageous, and in fact, she represents the modern woman, striving for equality not only with man, but against all dominancy mentality, basically. She stands for connectivity, she stands for association with nature. And if you look at the number of events in the recent years, they cause one to tune in more deeply to Sita. You can have to review her as a far more than an historical figure, an ideal to behold, understanding her as a living presence, very active in the world today, and not only in our personal lives but in the collective lives. Her action in going into exile with her husband was not merely that she was a partner and a wife, so was Lakshma's wife. But she didn't accompany, rather, Lakshma forbade her for company. She wanted to. Anyway, Sita went for another reason. She wanted to be equal to her husband, not a follower, so she accompanied him rather than followed him. There's a mistake. But when she was banished by Rama, she asserted herself. She stood and acted as a single mother, brought up her two sons who had the capacity to fight their own father and defeat him. This sign of bravery is something which is unparalleled in that part of the world at that time. And now, of course, single women looking after their families, promoting them, us. But then she was the first possibly single mother who was castigated for no fault of hers, and yet she stood out. So this very action shows that she didn't, when she was banished, she didn't start complaining, she was not weeping. She was brave. And she knew that this majoritarianism, populism, King Rama, bowing to the wishes of the lowest and gossip mongers, she stood up against that. And ultimately, if she said that, okay, I want to prove my purity by going into fire, this was not defeatist. This was an assertion of her individuality. She refuses to be dominated by the wagging tongues and also by the dominating husband. Rather than live with him after he came back, when he was defeated by his sons, wanted to take her back, she said no. She had a self-respect. And she said, look here, enough is enough. Now you can take your children, the sons, they are grown up, they are independent. But I would not accompany you. Now, this heroic feature was camouflaged as a sacrifice. It was not a sacrifice, it was an act of rebellion. She rebelled against male dominance. She rebelled against her husband's listening to baseless rumors. She reacted to the cruelty practiced on her in exiling her. Indeed, one can see Sita's hand everywhere and perceive messages hidden, which have to be revealed. You have to understand the transitional era in which she and Ram came into being and they helped the humanity evolve. And the traditional era in which we are now living. You see, evolutionary consciousness is required for survival not only of humanity, but of all life forms on the earth. And she stood for that. Living in a jungle, she was an example of what we say minimalistic living. A princess, a queen in her own right, the wife of a future king, the mother of the future kings, the daughter of one of the great scholar king. She started living the life of a forest dweller without demand, without complaint. And that shows her minimalistic living approach, and that's the approach that we praise today. Secondly, her desire for the golden deer was not for avarice, not for greed. She had left tons of gold in her palace. So gold was not what was attracting her. It was the beauty, it was the exceptionalism of the golden deer. It was not before that. She wanted possibly to hold it, not to kill it. So this love of nature, love of beauty, minimalistic living, and sustainability. She wanted possibly to preserve that exclusive deer because she knew that there are people out who would kill a golden deer because of its exclusivity. So she wanted to protect it. And that sense of protection of nature and the beauty is what really means sustainable living. So the active presence of Ram and Sita is apparent during the moments of our evolution stage. So what is Sita's message to us today as a collective humanity? In the Hindu philosophy, the time of Ram was Treta Yuga, and she and Ram lived there, and the humanity was emerging at that time for a very collective consciousness, into greater awareness of individuality. The bonds of the society were undergoing a change. The individual was emerging, and that sense of individuality, as I said earlier, is very clearly shown when she resisted all the advances of Ravana, and she resisted the request of her husband to go back after he realized his mistake, and also her protest when without a single tear, shedding a single tear, she left the palace when he exiled her. So she represented that time when the people lived in harmony with nature, understanding and respecting the abundant life forms, as well as the life energies of the rivers and the earth. And that's the modern life. So she was the precursor of the modernity, both in the gender equality, both in the assertion of individuality, sustainable living, and a feminist. As a matter of fact, it was the time before the need for domination took place, the human mind. When the human mind started to break away from nature and started to dominate nature, rather, leading to the various forms of oppression, they are visible even today. So, Sita's message is to tune in with nature and the need of humanity to evolve beyond the dominating mentality. Do not deem man to be the master of nature, but a part of nature. And that dominating mentality is responsible for gender domination, for the father figure dominating, for destroying the natural world and harming many human communities. I would call this dominating genes which must be overgrown and discarded. And this gene is very evident, very manifest in our political life, in our economic life, social and religious life. As a matter of fact, it has taken over the human consciousness in entirety. It manifests in the shape of a war, as a dictatorial attitude, controlling persons, authoritarian rules, and also as a sense of religious and racial superiority, as economic domination, as destruction of life forms and vital ecosystems, all leading to dangerous tensions and conflict and demise. So there's standing out of Sita on equal footing for the man, on equal footing with the forces of nature, with the animal life, and living at, as I said, a minimalistic. This was possibly the only example in mythology where the daughter of a king, the wife of a king, the mother of the future king, leaves a luxury life, first to accompany her husband for 14 years, and then when in the advanced stage of pregnancy, being exiled by her husband and goes to a forest again to live. And live, and not only live, but as I said, prosper as a single mother, maintaining. And then one thing more, she doesn't become resentful. Most of the single mothers are resentful, angry, annoyed. She doesn't poison the mind of her sons against her father. No way. Rather, when the father and the sons meet, she comes as a healer. And this dominating mentality, which is destabilizing the world today, and which responsible for the all-round destruction, was opposed by Sita. She was responsible with greater mindfulness to treat the natural world as a part of her extension. It's a time to look and find in ourselves the remnants of that tendency to assert your individuality, to assert yourself, rather than be part of the mob. Her protest against her exile at the saying of the watchman, quietly but meaningfully, was possibly the first time that a wife could tell her husband, look in the eyes, I'm not guilty and I don't want to explain myself. So basically from the personal Sita she becomes the collective woman. And the individual weakness becomes the weakness of the collective. Thus the word goes dangerously astray. And each one of us bears some responsibility. And this sense of awareness, awakening, begins with Sita. Now look at the two examples, Sita in Ramayana and Helen, and also Draupadi. Draupadi is insulted, but he wants revenge. Sita doesn't want revenge. She wants to awaken the conscious and the ethical values within you. She doesn't want a war because she has been exiled. Helen and Draupadi caused a war for their ego. Sita doesn't have an ego because she believes in sustainable living. So, her modeling is to recognize the active involvement in the world the way you live in, persistently, unseen ways, ensure that you help advance the evolution of the human community, the individual, unmindfulness of the dominating mentality. And that dominating mentality is manifest, as I said, in hundreds of ways. And Sita resisted all that. whether it was as a male when Ravana wanted to overcome her, whether as a wife, whether as a mother, but in all aspects, she has stood out as a symbol of strength, as a symbol of ethical values, and assertion of individuality, along with a protector of and an initiator of sustainable living. That is the message that Sita really seeks to convey rather than a demure, weeping, tormented wife. No way. Thank you.